Our guest for this hour, national trial attorney Mackenzie Joy Brennan. Mackenzie, thank you for being with us. Tell me your thoughts about, first of all, the demeanor of Sean Diddy Combs, because both Julie Grant and Kelly Craft have described his demeanor today. And Julie was saying when he came in, he seemed confident. He had a fist on his chest as he looked at the gallery where his mother was seated, the children were seated, sitting back as he's watching closing arguments. And this is a little bit different, as Kelly mentioned, than she's described throughout the trial. Throughout the trial, he has really not been engaging in that kind of behavior, kind of just sitting and listening and leaning. Does it make a difference to a jury if the demeanor changes between the course of the trial and actual closing arguments, or does it not matter?
Well, wait, those are great questions. And obviously we know that earlier in the trial, he got scolded for potentially trying to interact with the jury. He was seen smiling and nodding. He was staring down witnesses on the stand as well. So it seems like he's had some real ups and downs through the course of this trial. Today, yeah, he started out seeming confident. His sons sitting behind him were, fighting to stay awake at certain points. That, who knows, it could be a strategy, it could be them legitimately falling asleep, but I could see there being some logic to the family making the state's closing arguments look boring. But Combs himself, by the end of the day, I thought was looking a little dejected. I didn't stay until the very end of the arguments, but it's a lot to take in, and maybe he's trying to convey remorse that he wasn't able to convey because he didn't testify, which was a good call. But it's really, really hard to know how the jury's going to react to that. The jury tends to not like emotive displays in general. They always say, just sit still and look not guilty, whatever that means. So anything tends to be worse than nothing.
So Mackenzie, maybe I didn't realize this. Have you been inside that courtroom? I didn't. Yeah,
so I'm in Brooklyn right now, yeah.
I did not realize that. So tell me about the jury in terms of their intensity or not. How are they acting during all of this?
It's been pretty straight-faced from what I've seen. I know there have been moments of reaction. I know that they were frustrated at times in some of the cross-examinations. And frankly, that energy kind of flowed into the whole courthouse, even outside the courthouse. The cross-examinations got very heated, and it mobilized everybody on either side to kind of lock into their positions. And then obviously, there's been some dispute with some of the jurors' conduct. So we just had juror number 6 replaced last week, I believe it was, and had an alternate come in. So that changed the jury composition as well. But in general, really, really hard to read. And then on top of that, how do facial expressions translate to votes? I have no idea.
Yeah, that's a really valid point. You never know what a jury's going to do, nor should you try to guess based on their expressions, but I really appreciate your great insight. I'd like you to listen together with me. It's called The Best of the Prosecution. So it's a clip we've put together with some of their best evidence, and then I'd love you to weigh in on if you think they have actually presented enough evidence to prove racketeering. Hang on.
Okay.
Kidnapping, arson, drugs, sex crimes, bribery, and obstruction. These are just some of the crimes that the defendant and his inner circle committed again and again.
How long were you awake during the freak-off?
The whole time.
Did you get any sleep?
No.
Did you want to sleep?
Yes.
How did you stay awake that whole time?
The drugs, honestly, helped.
What kind of drugs kept you awake?
Ecstasy and Molly, for sure. We started to do other drugs, like cocaine, later on.
Who gave you the ecstasy?
Sean.
Who gave you the Molly?
Sean.
Who gave you the cocaine?
Sean.
How would Ms. Ventura react when you told her to leave?
Cass looked torn. Like, she would listen, but I could see the fear.
What did Ms. Ventura confide in you specifically about that abuse?
That he would hit her, sometimes kick her.
And you said he kept kicking her. Was he kicking her more than once?
Yes. He repeatedly kicked her, and she just kept. Each kick, she would crouch into more and more of a fetal position.
What happened as you were outside smoking a cigarette by a car?
Puff came around and threw me on the car and started choking me out.
What are some of the violent things that Mr. Combs has done to you?
He has thrown things at me. He has thrown me against the wall. He has thrown me into a pool. He has thrown an ice bucket on my head. He has slammed my arm into a door. He has also sexually assaulted me.
Did Mr. Combs put his hand up your dress?
Yes.
Did you want him to do that?
No.
Were you able to tell Mr. Combs no in that moment?
No.
Why not?
I was shocked and I froze. I didn't even process what was happening.
Can you explain to us, using your arms and your hands, how Sean actually put you into that chokehold?
I remember he came up behind me and just squeezed my neck in between his arms. And I just remember just grabbing his arm, and I couldn't even touch my neck. It was so tight. And I was on my tippy toes, and I thought I was going to pass out.
You know, as you listen to this, Mackenzie, to me, there's no doubt that he's committed crimes. There's no doubt a jury could hear he's committed crimes. But my question for you is, have you found, do you think, based on the evidence presented beyond a reasonable doubt, that the federal government has proven that there was a criminal enterprise, that he was using people in order to conduct these crimes?
I think you're right in that's the hardest thing to prove. I think that's going to be the hardest charge to bring home. And frankly, it's a new application, a relatively new application of the statute itself. Obviously, we're all familiar with the mob contexts that brought RICO into the public consciousness, but things like R. Kelly being tried for RICO, there was the NXIVM cult leader. These are more recent applications of these cults of personality type powerful men and the people around them who enabled them, which is slightly different and it's harder to prove in general. But obviously with people like R. Kelly, which is a relatively similar type of application, it worked. So we know that it has been done successfully. I think they did a lot of really good work on the diversity of predicate crimes so that if one fell off, if a couple fell off and they weren't proved adequately, they were destroyed on cross, there was still something to fall back on. And we do see yesterday the federal government took out the arson charge as related to Kid Cudi as a predicate and took out the kidnapping of Capricorn Clark. So they didn't feel that they'd proven those as adequate predicate crimes, but that still leaves behind the forced labor, the trafficking of narcotics through a number of different witnesses, kidnapping, which really means anytime somebody can't leave, and we have on video Cassie trying to leave a freak off and getting beaten. So that is a pretty effective way to show kidnapping. And we only need 2 of these predicate acts to get that pattern of racketeering activity that's needed to prove the hardest part of the statute. I guess the other difficult part is proving that the employees knew. The federal government did stress in their closing today that it just defies logic that the people around him didn't know this was happening. And they do have more than that. Obviously, they've introduced a lot of evidence of assistants, both saying that they participated in procuring drugs, setting up these rooms, knowing it was happening, paying for tickets for folks to go place to place, sex workers, guns, things like that. So I think they have a very solid framework. It's just going to come down to how lenient the jury is with applying that to the facts.
That's a really great summary. And I have to say this, as I was watching it, Mackenzie, unfold, not watching it, listening to updates and reading updates as it unfolded, because I've not been in the courtroom, I remember thinking, I don't know where the government's going to get the racketeering piece until the government started calling the assistant, the people who worked for him. And then to me, I'm like, oh, there it is, there it is, there it is. So we'll see what the jury does. I just want to listen too, because we do hear a little bit in the course of the trial. Of course, most people know what Sean Diddy Combs sounds like, whether it's through his music, through interviews. Everybody knows who he is. But there was a voicemail that he had left for Jane. Let's listen to that.
Hey, I really don't know what's going on with you, but I just want to just give you a heads up that I'm about to really disappear on you. You feel me? I'm not going to be playing these games with you at all, at all. So I don't know, you think you silent treating me, and you think I'm going to be, nah. You'll have a rude awakening. You'll just have silence. And ain't nobody threatening you, and I ain't trying to go back and forth with no woman. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you, I ain't got no time for no games. Where my life is at right now, I don't have no time for no games, baby girl. Me and you can be mad, I can have a spat, we can have whatever. Then after that, you better get on your job. That's really, that's all it is. Cause you got me on my job. Nah, it ain't never gonna work like that over here. You know what I'm saying? I was trying not to leave this message, but you have left me no choice. So either you go in the direction of like moving on and like that, or you like just like have me just keep moving. Ain't no threat, I'm just being clear. I can't do this with you every time you get upset.
I don't know, Mackenzie, is that a veiled threat? Because honestly, I know a lot of circumstances in which someone doesn't want to play the games, doesn't want to be with another person, and guess what? They never call that person again. They don't want to speak to that person, and they don't feel like they have to take the time to leave a controlling message.
Right, and I think it's always telling if somebody says twice in the span of a message, this isn't a threat. There's a little bit of protesting too much, and he also invoked things like, this is your job, and they, of course, had this love contract, which made her do these freak-offs in return for him paying her rent. So things like that obviously connect to the sex trafficking as well, and I think they go a long way in proving coercion in all sorts of different forms.
Yeah, I think you're right, but you're right. We'll see what the jury does. They're going to have a lot to think about. We're still in closing arguments today. Stand by. Coming up next, though, we're going to switch gears to another live trial that we have been following and bringing to you out of Florida as updates. It's the missing boyfriend murder trial for Christopher